Hello, I'm Alex, and in this Blender tutorial, I'll show you how to create this slickback hairstyle by using hair particles. I'll give the model a quick spin to show you the full haircut, and let's get started. So I'll be using the short fade hairstyle as a base, which I made in the previous tutorial, and if you want to know how to create this base first, please watch the first part. I'll drop the link in the description. And as usual, I'm using Eevee render engine for previewing the results in real time. So here is my reference, and let's break down this haircut. We basically have two parts for this hairstyle. We have the lower part, which is the faded hairstyle that we created already in the previous tutorial, and the top part is what we'll be adding next. So this is the top piece, which has the longer hair, and the lower part is the faded hairstyle that we already made. So with that in mind, to continue where we left off, I'll simply take this haircut and I'll make a bold spot on top where later we'll be placing the longer hair strands. So first thing I'll do is I'll go to the vertex groups. This is the vertex group that is responsible for defining where the hair is supposed to grow. So I'll go to the weight paints and turn on overlays. So now I'll simply create a bold spot on top. And actually I will copy this vertex group first to make a copy vertex group, and I'll call this hair scalp sides only. And now I will select my paintbrush, set weight to 0, and I will start painting the bold spot. And actually let me turn on the X for symmetry, so that way I paint on both sides. And also let's go to the vertex groups tab and actually replace this with the one that we just copied. So this will be hair scalp side only. That way we can see the feedback and what is happening. So as you can see, as I'm painting, this hair is being removed from the top, which will later replace with the longer hair. Simply paint it out. It doesn't need to be perfect. If there are some hairs, just a few hairs left on top, that's no problem. Just the reason why we're doing this is we don't want any kind of weird looks there. Also, if we have this extra hair on top and it's sort of hidden inside the full hairstyle, we're still rendering that hair, so it also takes up energy from the machine to render all these extra hairs. So something like that will be okay for now. So the first step is complete, and we'll still adjust it later on as we'll be placing the longer hairs. We'll come back to this part again, but for now let's go back to the hair menu, and we'll create a brand new hair particle which will serve us for the longer hair strands. I'll switch to hairs, and let me select the number of hairs. We'll just go 20. I always try to start with the minimum amount of hairs. Later I can always add them. And let me adjust some of the settings. I'll set the hair length to 0.4, maybe a bit smaller, 0.2 should be okay. And we'll adjust the hair diameter, which is hidden in the hair shape diameter scale. So diameter root, we usually go for 0.03 and 0.03. So I don't know if you can tell, but that's our hairs now. They are much thinner in diameter. And one more thing, let me set the material to hairs. Okay, so we have that. And as you remember in the first part of this tutorial, you can see that the hairs currently are spread all over the body, so we'll need to define where the hair grows from, and we'll, in the next step, we'll define this top piece, and we'll relocate all the hairs that is currently spread out all over the body. We'll relocate them to the top of the head where it's. Let's return to the vertex group menu, and we'll create a new one called hair top. Now I'll switch to edit mode, and for me the easiest thing to do right now is I'll simply select some of these vertices and we'll apply 100% of weight to them. So I'll switch to the side view and wireframe mode, and we'll select the lasso tool and simply select all these vertices on top. This is where the top of the hair will grow, and I'll click assign, and to switch to the weight paint mode, this is what happened. And I'll actually need to probably paint out some of it. So let's go to the weight, set that to 0, and hit N on the keyboard to bring out the menu. And let me start painting this out. X is on, this is for symmetry. So I'll paint out this part like so for now. It doesn't need to be perfect, and I'll blur this out so the transition is fairly smooth. Alright, so this is good for now. Let's go back to the object mode and turn off overlays. Now if we go back to the particle system, which we'll call top long hairstyle, and now let's go down to the vertex groups and we'll set the density to the hair top. So now the longer hairs that we will be creating on the top, now they're only positioned at the bald spot, and we'll be adding more children hairs, and we'll also groom the hairs. Let's adjust some settings. First I'll set the children to interpolated, and we'll bump up this display amount to 50 is about right. Okay, so now we can start styling the hair. To do this, we'll switch to particle edit mode and hit A on the keyboard to see the parent particles. So actually, to make my life easier, I'll just go ahead and I will select half of these particles, hit delete on the keyboard and delete particle. And I simply want to just symmetrize it so that it's easier for me to style this haircut. So I'll hit again A on the keyboard. So this left side will now be brought over to the right side in a symmetrical fashion. I'll go to particle, mirror, and now we have same amount on the left side and on the right side, and they're located symmetrically. Before we continue with brushing the hair, I think I will add a few more parent particles just to fill some of these gaps here. So I'll switch to add mode, and my count is at 1, so I only can place one at a time, and I have mirror on so that when I place one particle, it's also placed on the other side. For now, I will also switch off the children so I can see what I'm placing, and I'll simply fill out some of these parts here. A few here and a couple more in the back. So something like this, and a couple more. Let me undo this. One here, and a couple here. Okay, so we have all these parent particles now. And next I can proceed with combing. I'll switch to the side view by hitting 3 on the keypad and F for adjusting the hairbrush, and I'll start simply dragging it and adjusting the hair placement. I usually use the side of the brush, not completely like this, as that's too much influence, but as I use the side of the brush, it looks like a smoother result. All right, so we have something like this now. And as you can see, we have extra long hair in the back now, so we'll need to use lengthen to adjust this length. So actually, to lengthen, you'll simply use this brush, and you can just click on the hair strands and it will start lengthening. But to do that in reverse, you'll hold shift and it will decrease the amount of length, so it will actually shorten the hair particles. So some of these hair strands we can adjust like so. Right, I'll switch back to comb and we'll place some of these hairs as well, and we'll also need to comb them in the back like so. Decrease the length here. Switch to comb and like so. Alright, so now we have something like this and it's not looking right. That's because we need to add more steps in the path. As you can see, this is our render menu and this is the viewport render. So if we put 3 here, you can see that this is also increasing, and if we decrease it, you can see that it can go to all the way to the straight line at number 1. So I'll bump this up to about 4, actually 5. That way the hair will be more smooth, and I'll also match the render output as well to 5, so that way when I do a final render, the same result will happen on in the render viewport. All right, let's continue. At this point, I want to adjust some hair settings, and I want to find clumping and use clump curve and set the curve like this. That way I can visually see what is happening to each clump. Next, I also want to add a little bit of roughness to the hair, and I usually start with this random roughness, and I don't want to give it too much, maybe 0.01 will be okay. That way you can see all, like some of the hairs are now a little bit more uneven, and give that a size of 0.05 is a good number, and I'll give a threshold of about 0.3. Okay, now that's looking better, and we'll continue to styling our hair in the particle edit mode. Let's turn on the children and we'll start brushing. Okay, so as I have my reference on another monitor, I can start brushing the hair to match the reference. At this point, I'll turn off the mirror and increase the brush size. I'll adjust some of these hairs by switching to the length brush. Hold shift once again to give it a shorter length like this. Switch to the comb. and continue shaping the hairstyle. Some hairs may be out of place, so it's a little bit hard to get to them. To do this, I'll hold Control and click on one of the keys of the hair strand, and then I will hold Control once again and hit L for Lucy. I can select the individual hair strand, and now I can place it where it should be. Then I want to select this one. Also, it seems to be out of place. And I'll put it here. And so this process now is, could be kind of tedious, or you may find it therapeutic. Just sort of put on some music and get your reference on the side and place these hair strands where they should be. All right, I want to add some additional hair strands over here. It seems a little bit empty in this area. And maybe a couple here. So I'll switch to Add. I actually like to select all before I do that. So to select all, hit A on the keyboard. And then when I place the new hair strands, I can simply invert the selection and style that selection. So now I click Add, and as you can see, this hair strand kind of by default it just sticks out. So I'll undo this, and I want to select Interpolate. That way the newly placed hairs will sort of follow the general direction of the existing hairs. So I'll add a few hairs here. Maybe actually a few more in the front. Okay, now I can invert by holding Control I, and these are all new hairs. So let me put them in their place. Something like this. I put this over here, and you can take as much time as you want for this, for styling the hairs. You know, it's all now up to you, to the artist, to define the look. Maybe I want this trend to be like a little bit out of place, like hanging on the side now, because sometimes it just falls off, and shorten the length. Now I, for example, want to give it like some interesting look, that one of the hairs kind of like is to the side. It's all up to you how you want to make it look. This is the artistic part of the hair creation, the styling, grooming. All right, I think it's starting to look better. I think I will add a little bit of volume here. Switch back to comb. Give this front a little bit more volume, like so. Let me select this particular one. It looks a little bit out of place. And all right, that's looking pretty good. Now I want to go back to actually the short part of the hairstyle, and I would like to adjust that as well now. Let's select the fade example. This is this part. So I want to paint out some of this hair that is sort of like intersecting here as well. You can see that there's like a lot of short hairs in there. So I kind of want to paint that out. So I'll go to the vertex group, and this one is called side only. So I'll switch to the weight paint, turn on overlays, and let me turn off this fade look. I think the longer hairs will give me a guide to that. So let me switch to the draw brush, and the weight is at 0, so I'll start painting these out. Actually, let me select exit, so we do it on both sides. So that will be the long hair, and you can see that some of these hairs are also here out of place. We'll fix that a little bit later. So I'll do this. I think this is about right. Let me also use blur to sort of smooth this area out. That way there's like a little bit of a better transition there. Blur it out. Actually, let's remove this part. I don't want any short hairs in there as well. All right, so let's turn this back in. We have adjusted the hairs. One more thing I want to add is I want to add a little bit of drop in the fade a little bit lower. If I pull up the reference, you can see that the back sort of drops here a little bit. So in my example, is right now is just straight all around. So I want to add a little bit of this drop to the fade. And to do that, I'll go back to the vertex groups, and that's the fade bold. And I'll go to the weight paint, and I'll start adding a little bit of different maps. Let's do one, add one. So the hair will continue growing here at 100%. Let's do 0.5, and this will grow here. And at 0.1, the hair will continue to grow this way. And as you can see, as I'm painting, these hairs start to poke through. Now I'll do something like in between to give it a transition. 0.5, from 0.5 to 0.1. Now I'm switching back to 0.2, and 0.7. I'll do like a transition here and switch to 0.5 again. This green will go here, and now I simply use the blur tool to give it a nice even transition. I'll blur this out. So now we have this nice drop to the faded part of the hairstyle. Something like this. And let's switch back to the object view. You see, nice added transition in the back. All right, now I want to get back to the top of the hairstyle, and I want to adjust a little bit of those hairs that were previously looking out of place. So I want to get rid of, fix this area. So let's see what is happening here. Switch back to the particle edit mode. I will, I'm in the wrong hair particle name, select all by hitting A on the keyboard, and I think it might be because some of these hairs are a bit too close to the scalp. Let me see if that fixes a little bit. It kind of does, but I think that's not the real issue. I think it's because on the vertex group there's probably a little bit, the map is has a little bit of a transition there where some of the weights are a bit spread out. So I'll switch back to the weight paint and select the hair top, turn on overlays. Yes, as you can see, this map needs some fixing, so I'll go to the draw and I'll paint out this area. Yeah, you can see that fixes the issue. Now these hairs are painted out. Let me turn on the fade example so we can see where it's supposed to go. We can paint out even further, like so. Let's see the other side. Other side doesn't seem to have issues with it. Let's switch back to the object mode, and now you can see some of those problem areas are removed. And now we can simply continue styling the hairs further. So to fine-tune the hair, I want to increase the amount of hairs and see actually how they look. I'll bump this up to 100, and I also feel that this side hair roughness also needs to be fixed a bit. It seems like they don't really match by their texture, so I'll select the fade and I'll decrease the roughness amount by, let's try 2. Yeah, something like this. I'll think I'll also decrease the diameter by hitting this to 0.5. That way the hair kind of looks a little bit, looks like it matches the top as well. Alright, I want to take care of this extra long hair in the back. There's one strand that is sort of poking out. I want to fix that. Select top long, particle edit, hold Control L to select this strand and turn off mirror and put it to the side like so. So you see how it, sometimes you just need to go back and forth for hair adjustment. Sometimes you'll need to go to the hair settings. Sometimes you'll need to go to your vertex group to adjust the map to fix certain issues, but this is a general workflow. I like to work step by step, where you can set one parameter, then groom it a little bit, then see what is missing, then fix some of the issues, and you will get eventually there. Just keep adjusting the hairstyle to your liking. Spend as much time as necessary so the haircut looks good to you. Alright, I think we've reached a good point where I can stop. I think I will add a couple of more hair strands here to give it a little bit more interesting look. Go to the hair particles, select all, add a couple of hair strands here, invert them and comb them out a little bit to the side so it has a little nicer transition here. Go like this, and I think I'll shorten it just a bit. Yeah, that looks better. I think it's giving it a little better shape. I think I'll do the same on the other side. Select all again, add 1, 2, 3 here, Control I to invert the selection, and once again I'll also shorten these strands here, give it a brush like so. Perhaps they're also like a little bit falling on this end. And seems there's a little bit of a bald spot here. Let's see, I'll grab one of these hair strands and try to adjust so that spot is a little bit more covered. There's a hair strand inside somewhere that I can select. This one here. And let's shape the back like so. Yeah, so as I mentioned, you can spend as much time as you could possibly want to make it look as good as you want. So I'm happy with this result, and let's call it done. So this was a walkthrough on how to create this Slickback hairstyle. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please let me know in the comments. And if you have found this tutorial useful, give it a like. Thank you for watching and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.